So today we're here with Aliu and Chris.
Hello,
So
guys. My name is
me,
Chris.
yeah, me and Chris, we met at work actually because we have a lot of hot topics that we discuss at work, and we just thought like why not just turn this into a little podcast like everybody's doing it. So we thought why not us too, right?
Right.
So we're both in political science, so that also adds a little bit more texture into the discussions, and we like hot topic issues. So we're here today to discuss immigration in Canada because since the age of Donald Trump, the guy that wants to take over a country, the immigration subject has become polarized in
Yes.
society. So we, as immigrants, both he and I, he came in 2015, and I came in 2008 9. So we kind of have a nuanced view of this issue. So we're gonna talk about those things, and we're gonna literally bring up some statistics based on the type of government and policies that are pursued by the federal government, and we're just gonna comment on that. So I don't know how you want to start this discussion, but I'll pass you the word.
Yes. As Aliyu mentioned, my name is Chris, and we've met at work. And today we are discussing how mass immigration policies has had a negative impact uh, on Canadians. So we're gonna first gonna start by bringing raising points. Like we're gonna compare policies before and after 2015 in relation to Canada's uh, s- economic standing.
Yeah. So I want to start by first pointing out that according to some very light research, I'm not gonna lie. So some very light research, because we're not trying to go into some scientifical pursuit about this subject. We just, because the most important thing to know about immigration today in Canada, in my opinion, is the mood of Canadian citizens towards new immigrants, right? That's really what we want to tackle. We want to understand where their concerns are and where the concerns of the people that come into this country are, right? Because we have to, those are the two peoples that have to deal with this issue. It's not the federal government, even though it's them that decides for us, right? So
Yes.
that's what we want to talk about. So for me, like I said, based on just some light research, I can already see, based on my light research here, that compared to the Trudeau era, right? If you look at the Harper the Harper government, which was much more conservative towards immigration, while obviously the liberal governments, they do want, it's not that they don't want, they want mass immigration, but they pursue less restrictive immigration policies, right? So during the Harper years, we can definitely see here that the net migration, meaning the total amount of people that immigrated to Canada, that's even taking into account the people that left in the same year, right? So the average of that was 200,000, 44, and 700 people, right? So that was during the Harper years, right?
Okay.
That was the amount of people that came in, uh, taking into account also the people that left the country in the same year, right?
Okay.
So that's the net migration number, right? So during the Trudeau government, we saw that number double. So the amount became 400,074 and 200 people, that through the average of the years that the Trudeau government was in power, right? So we see a double, right? So we can clearly see a difference of policy, meaning that the Harper policy was more restrictive towards immigration, while the liberal government, the Trudeau government that followed, was more open to immigration, right?
Yes.
And we're not here to tell you we're for or against my immigration, brother. We're immigrants, so obviously we're biased, but we also want to recognize the native Canadians' feelings towards immigration. How our coming into this country, how does that impact them in terms of like is there enough resources to be able to be redistributed around for everybody to have an opportunity to still look for that Canadian dream, for lack of a better term. So we have to also talk about, so in talking about that, because the sense I get with the native Canadians, right, is that they feel like we kind of we have a sense of entitlement. Like immigrants have a sense of entitlement in terms of when they immigrate to Canada, right? Because they get all these things like that are taken care of for them and stuff like that, but they still want to, it's almost like you come into my home and you still want to rule my home, right? You still want to live as if you're living inside your home, in my home, right? As comfortable and as, so we want to address that because
Can I interject?
yes, you can, obviously, bro. This is a
Yes.
discussion.
So you mentioned how immigrants feel entitled, but you have to remember that there is, um, like Canadian, like the immigration system that allowed them to come and that has things in place to make them for feel at home. So it's not like we first of all we invited them to our home, and then we gave them the resources to live in
Yeah,
our
to
home.
yeah.
So it's not that I don't think they feel entitled. I think it's they're given the opportunities to live in the Canadian society, and they're just using those opportunities.
Yes.
Because it all comes down. It all comes from the government. It's not the immigrants are just like using what
So
they have been
yes,
given.
absolutely. That's what the Canadian natives don't understand, right? Because there's again, this discussion is very nuanced, right? We're not here to tell you we're for or against anybody. We are here to translate the feelings of each side, right? So you as an immigrant, you're coming here for a reason, right? What the native Canadians don't understand too is almost 100% of immigrants would rather stay in their native country, in their native lands, given the opportunities that they can access here in their native country. They would rather stay in their native countries, right? Because that's where their culture is, that's where how they grew up. They have traditions, norms that they don't want to lose culture. Because one area that is under discussed that native Canadians take for granted is the fact that when we immigrate here, we lose a lot of our culture, and that's 100% true. Tell me, so I was born into a family of 9 children, right? And God, I'm thankful for my dad for really taking a long term outlook on our futures and actually prioritizing our future and making sure that every one of those 9 children made it to this country, right? But
That's a
what?
lot of work.
Yeah, that's a lot. No, no, no. Thankfully, he came first at a young age, and he was already Canadian when we went back home, and he got married with my mom, and so it was much easier for us. We didn't really come here like as on under
International students.
yeah, yeah, international students or refugee status, right? But what I'm trying to say to you, brother, is the fact that out of all those 9 children, right? Whenever I have a conversation with any one of my siblings, you know what language I speak with that conversation. Even though we know our mother tongue, we've always spoken that inside the house. My dad had a rule that we don't speak French, we don't speak English, we speak our native language, right? But every single time I communicate with my siblings, we speak in English, right? And throughout the 16 years I've been in Canada, my native language, I've became worse in speaking it, right? And better in speaking in English. And so there's a give and take, right? Because they want us to come here and fully integrate, embrace everything about the country and everything, right? And leave our culture out the door. It's almost the sense that the with the frustration of native Canadians that are against immigration, that, they feel like the fabric of the country is changing, right? Like the norms that they're used to are no longer here because there are different type of people that come here and pursue their own cultures, right? And even try to spread their own cultures over the Canadian culture, right? So that's where they get their fears from. That's where because they want to preserve their own culture. But what they don't understand is when we come here, whether we like it or not, as Muslims, as Christians, we have to integrate. That's the name of the game. You have to survive in the environment you're in, right? And in order to survive, we have to adopt the Canadian system, right? But that's not talked about. It's talked about that because they see us, we're wearing our traditional clothing, where, we're whether we have like multicultural days, we have all these things where we celebrate different cultures, and it's kind of like they feel like threatened by that, in a way, right? But I'm here to tell them, my brother, my Canadian, native Canadians, brothers and sisters, we sacrificed to come here, and our number one, we weren't born setting out to come here to immigrate to another country. We want to stay in our own lands, right? It's just that we haven't had the opportunities that you guys have in our countries, in terms of the most basic needs that we need, right? In terms of health, education, proper quality of life. We don't have that, right? So our coming here is not based on our desire to be in this country. It's based on fleeing some type of repressive system that we were born into, that we had nothing to do with, right? So it's important for that to be talked about.
Yes. So now we're gonna speak about the Canadian, the immigration history in Canada, because I believe this is really important in order to have a full picture of what's happening today. Okay, so I did some research and I found out that Canada always had open immigration. It's called inclusionary immigration model. It still is one of the top ranking country in terms of accepting immigrants, because of its geographic location and just government in general.
You're bringing the fact that the country was built on immigration.
Yes.
Right, starting with the people that came from Europe after the First and Second World Wars. Maybe maybe there was less issues there because the people that came at that time was coming from Western countries with Western values, right?
Exactly.
And it helps the fact that they were also white,
Right.
right? So nobody has issues with, when and suddenly you start seeing a lot of Muslims and Christians from
And
different
Asian.
colors, and Asians, and then there's problems, right? But so I think at the core of the argument to me is the fact it's not really a racist fight, or whatever. At the core of the argument to me, it's a cultural fight. Do you understand what I mean? Like the West wants to keep its Western culture, traditions, and norms,
Yes.
against, and they see all these people coming from poor countries that have a complete different framework in terms of what they believe in, like the processes and in their cultures, how a man and a woman should be together. If you look at Indian culture, if you look at African cultures, if you look at Middle Eastern cultures, if you look at Eastern Africa versus Western, so basically they see it as a war against Western culture, right? Because all these cultures are coming in and slowly they're getting stronger.
Yes, but
right?
now we're getting too far. We're getting far ahead.
Yeah, no,
We're
no.
going
I'm saying
far.
I'm going into the
Yes,
core
the
of
core
the
argument.
the core argument, right?
But during the 1900s, so as Aliyu said, there was like immigrants that were primarily coming from Europe, and then fast forward, Asian also came and other people from Africa or whatever. But during the 20th century, there was actually a ban on Asian immigrants, so they couldn't come in. So immigration
What
started
was the what
becoming
was the reason behind that, you think?
just because just preserving like just fearing the erosion of Western
Western
values
values.
and culture
And and again, yeah, that's to me that's the really the heart of the, that's
yes.
why earlier I was speaking to the integration and what it actually takes for us as immigrants to integrate, right? And you can even see the difference in your mentality, right? When you go back home to your to your original country, you can see how you think have changed because of the amount of years you
Right.
spent in Canada compared to your compatriots, right?
Yes.
So that's what I was speaking to the.
Yes, and well, during the Great Depression, let me just first by start by saying this. Uh, Before the 1990s, immigration was based on economic need. So if the economic was doing well and like businesses had labor shortages and needed more work
Employees.
employees or other like other beneficiaries of immigration like had a need for immigrants, then immigrants came, but it was based on uh,
Yeah,
economic situation
yeah,
of
yeah.
yeah, it was based on the situation in the economy. But during the Great Depression, when the economic was very low, it was very low for anyways, they stopped they stopped welcoming immigrants. And then after the Great Depression, that's where there was a large immigration
Yeah, like
mass
migration
mass
type of.
migration, because they also allowed Asian to come into the country because they needed that uh,
Yes.
labor shortages filled.
Yes, and also there's another. We're touching into another area here, right? Because we're talking about the argument that because of the amount of economic migration that came into this country, especially today, right? We're talking about the quality of life being affected by that due to the fact that immigrants are always willing to do the harder jobs for less money, right? So basically, employers have no incentive to rage to sorry, not to rage, to raise the pay, right? So basically that's another argument that people that are against mass immigration or any type of immigration, that's what they always talk about, right? But that's that's more of a choice by the employer to say, okay, because I have an opportunity to leverage the immigrant against their like situation, because they can't fight against they just need a job, like they have an urgency when they come look for a job, right? They don't have a lot of demands, they have less demands than the average Canadian citizens, right? So basically it's up to the employer not to leverage that against the immigrant based on his situation, right? Do you understand where I'm coming from?
No, I don't.
So basically, the employer is choosing to go hire immigrants because he can pay them less than they deserve, right? So all he needs to do is pay them according to the standards of of any other Canadian, right? So it's a choice. It's not based on it's not the immigrants that is deciding to be paid at lower wages. It's the employer, right? So the government needs to basically how to fix that is the government needs to make sure that the employer pays the living wage regardless of who he's hiring. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes. So there's actually the wage laws in place There's minimum wage.
There is there is a minimum wage, but there is also lack of enforcement
the
on
problem.
the minimum
I
wage.
believe there's a lot of enforcement in terms of wage in Canada more than in the
Of
U.S. or
course,
other
more
countries.
than the US, because we're more socially, like we're.
And also there's also benefits that the government offer, especially for women or like
Yes.
single mothers and people in need of money. But my opinion, let's just jump to our opinions regarding the immigration situation today. So like for the background, uh, in the 19 before the 1990s, as I told you, there was inclusionary immigration model, and it was based on the economic output of the day of
Mhm. Of the times,
the
yeah.
times. I believe that the government should implement that now, and the Justin Trudeau government already implemented that. Before he resigned, he
I would disagree respectfully on that one, but keep going.
before Justin Trudeau resigned, he diminished the amount of the amount of immigrants that Canada takes in. That's not, you can't disagree
But
about
let's
that.
be. Of course, I cannot disagree because that's based on statistic,
That's
right?
facts.
But the problem is, why did he do that? It was an
Because
election year, and the mood of Canadian citizens was not for immigration. It was against immigration. This is why they stopped, because people started complaining as to why, like because of the housing market, right? Because of the rent prices, right? They even basically what they found out is there's way more people coming in for the capacity to be housed, right? Because now you see, have you ever seen those posting online where someone is actually renting one side of a room at $500? Have you seen that? I've seen that everywhere in Toronto. I've seen that in Ottawa. So it got to the point where they were accepting way too many people that were able to absorb at the time, right?
yes,
And that's to me, that's my the continuing thing that I keep speaking about.
yes, that is true, and I completely agree with you on this point that basically Canada, well, after 2015, they accepted more immigrants than they could handle, and the public resources weren't enough to accommodate everyone in the country.
Yes.
And we're seeing negative impact of it in the housing market, in everything, the
But
inflation, and yeah, you can.
yes, sorry to interrupt you. I know maybe I talk a lot, but these are things that I'm so, because I talk to a lot of people, right? I talk to, because even if it has major negative impact on the job market, on the housing market, on all type of economic fronts, right? Because it creates more competition, and it create lesser supply, right? For like the amount of jobs out there, for the amount of people that are looking for
Yes.
jobs, right? So it's obviously the Canadian citizen will be negatively impacted by that, right? But what we need to be careful, and we need to be absolutely careful with this, is not to drive the Canadian population support for immigration towards against immigration, right? Because that's what we don't want. Because we don't want immigration to happen at the expense of the native Canadian, right? We want immigration to happen where the person that comes here gets everything that they came here for not at the expense of the person that's here. Like while the person that lives here is still rising and getting everything out of what they're putting into the economy, right? And that's that's the heart of the issue to me, in my opinion, right? Because the people that are for immigration, they take they take the concerns of the person that is here, that is seeing their life change based on immigration. They take that as discriminatory. Oh, you're against other people coming in. You're, they take that as an insult, right? Rather than understanding that it's not that I'm against immigration, it's that I don't want you to come take what's mine. I want me to rise while you're rising. I want us all to rise together, right? So how you do that is you have to control the amount of people that are coming in according to the resources available.
Yes,
right?
actually, before recording this podcast, I was thinking how today we're in an uncertain time because we are experiencing. I believe this is a moment we're experiencing the negative consequences of immigration, but I don't think it will last for forever, for a
Yeah.
while. I think things are gonna go back to normal. I was actually looking at how much uh, apartments are being built in Ottawa alone. There's a lot of apartments being built, and there's actually one that they're offering 2 months free rent for its apartment in downtown. This is a good sign that things are starting to go uphill.
Yeah. No, I agree with you that another problem of the immigration issue is the fact that, unfortunately, municipal policies, right? Because you have to, when you want to build, you have to get permits, right? There's environmental studies that have to be done on the location that you want to build.
Right.
There's all these approvals that have to be made, right? And obviously, the in the last election, the conservative guy, he had a solid argument, because what he said is he wants to unleash he wants to cut the over regulation when it comes to building a house, right? Because whenever we know that there's not enough housing available for the amount of people coming in, right? But what they can do, another solution to that, is built with this vast country, so how you do that is you cut regulation. So I thought that was a good argument for that, because we do need to build much more, right? We need to have housing widely available in this vast country. We're like
Yes,
the third.
I do believe the same thing. Sorry to cut you off,
Yeah.
but I believe that regulation is important. But I just believe that when you look at the construction standards, the residential standards in Canada compared to, for example, my country, they're like way off the charts.
so let me ask you now, how many incidents have there been in your country, and then those incidents were traced directly back to lack of regulation?
There's actually many incidents that were.
Because I believed
there is many incidents, not too many,
Not-
but there is a lot of incidents
I
that
don't-
happened,
but
and that actually made
I-
the news.
Yes, they made the news, right? But you're talking about because we're not arguing for basic standards, right? We're arguing for overbearing standards, like against overbearing standards, right? We're talking about environmental standards that have nothing to do with the safety of the home or the building being built, right? For human beings or whatever. It has more to do how that structure being built will affect the environment in some way, shape, or form, right? So there are very abstract
Yes, but
solutions that come with these
I
regulations.
believe the most important thing here is I'm for regulations, but I'm not for them taking too long. We should cut off.
But the more
we should
regulation-
cut off the red tape, or just try to.
My friend Chris, you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. That's what I feel like you're having here. Because you want the standard, but you don't want the time. But the time is because of the amount of standards that are outlined in the municipal policies, right? It's because they want to do an environmental review, they want to do a safety review, they want to do this and that, they want you to pay this tax, they want you to do that, they want to, you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, we need to choose what is the basic safety level that we want when we want to build a structure in Canada. Everything else is absolutely nonsense, and everything else is what you're referring to, which is red tape, which takes time, which takes money. Remember, the people that develop structures, they have a budget too. They have an amount that they want to spend. So if they spend, the more they spend, the more we have to pay for the house, right? So those expenses in terms of getting approvals through, those are real expenses for the real estate developers that they have to pass along to us. So right, that's another also expense, and in terms of like trying to find cheap housing and stuff like that, right? So that's another impact. But yeah,
So, just to end, we're just gonna have quick two, like just a few words about the immigration, how things can get better. So you can start just a few words on.
yeah. So yeah, I would like to say that the reason for the intensity of the polarization of almost anti-immigration movement in today in Canada with the rise of Donald Trump, and like, obviously this is not something that started in our country. Like, all the Western countries are dealing with this immigration issue, right? And to me, the underpinnings of these an issue like this is economic, right? If you look at the last 20 years, people are no longer able to basically access the Canadian dream, if for lack of a better word, basically owning a home, having a good job, getting being able to have the enough funds to get married and build just build a life, right? So that's the foundation of the economic needs of a population, and I don't think people enough people have had access to that in the last 15-20 years, and this is why it has. So when people don't have access to stuff, they automatically look for reasons with frustrations. So we see all these people coming in, all these new faces, but we see our quality of life going down in the last few years. So I think the reason for that is economic, and the government, all the governments of Western countries are well served today by focusing their policies on how they can make the lives of their citizens better, economically better. I have 5 friends. We're all in the same situation. We're all overqualified for most of the jobs out there. Even those jobs that are out there, we're still having to fight tooth and nails to get those jobs, right? So that's the crux of it for me.
Yes.